Right now, today, less than a month from training camp, who are the best 11 on each side of the ball for the Green Bay Packers?
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Terms apply. Offense, defense. How can this Packer team find the best 11 guys? How can they get the best 11 guys on the field? Because those are not always the same thing. That's what makes this discussion to me so interesting. And this dovetails with some of the conversations we had earlier in the week about, okay, who's the best offensive lineman now versus who is it going to be? All those questions are relevant here because when you're trying to project forward, it's not just about what you're doing right now. It's about who's going to be the best player in 3 months, in 6 months, in January, when you have to go beat the 49ers and the Cowboys and the Eagles and all the teams that they are probably going to have to beat if they want to go win a Super Bowl, the AFC. So let's start offensively. Jordan Love is going to play quarterback. We know that. Josh Jacobs is going to be the starter at running back. The question that I have is a philosophical one here. What is the best personnel for the Packers? What is the best personnel? I want to believe that 21 for them is going to be awesome with two running backs on the field, but it hasn't really in a couple years. Aaron Jones is gone. If they want to lean into more gap and power runs, is that really the best way to do that? I don't think so. I love the matchups they can create with two tight ends on the field, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. But then you're taking one of your receivers off the field. And if you just give me Wicks, Reed, Watson, those three in particular, I think all three are better than the quote unquote other tight end. But I love what the Packers can do out of 12 personnel. Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave fit so well together. The problem is league averages tell us it's just not as efficient and effective to throw to tight ends generally as it is to receivers. And the advantages created on average are not as efficient over time as maybe our brains lead us to believe. And certainly in the planning process, it seems really nice. Hey, make them play in base and then put their linebackers in hell. Okay. But now you've made it harder to run unless both your tight ends are really good blockers. That's a work in progress for both of those guys. I won't be surprised if we see a ton of 12 this year. But to me, the best this offense can be is an 11 personnel. You still can play action, single back, Luke Musgrave or Tucker Kraft split out into the formation or in line. You're in a really good spot. Now, part of the impetus for this was our pal Zach Cruz over at Packers Wire posted the yards per route run data from guys in the slot. And I thought Christian Watson numbers would be better. I thought Jaden Reed's numbers would be better. And it was actually Dontavian Wicks and Bo Melton that had the better numbers in the slot on the team. Now, I think part of that is like, okay, you put a good receiver in the slot, you create life. It's a little bit easier. You don't have to get off press or worry about any of those things. You create some space automatically that way. That's in there. And Jaden Reed had way more reps doing it than everyone else. And so just the law of big numbers says he's probably going to be less effective. And the things they're asking him to do from the slot are different too. But to me, still, I think the answer is Jaden Reed in the slot because of the versatility that he brings you. Jet sweep stuff, orbit motion stuff. It's all there in the menu for Matt LaFleur. I like Christian Watson as the Z. Put him on the 2 receiver side, and you can if they're going to play man coverage, which, you know, if you want to do that, second half of the season last year, Christian Watson, one of the best in the league against man coverage. You can do that. And then you lock Dontavian Wicks on the backside. I think he is their best guy who's going to just win one-on-one as a route runner right now. I think that's your best group of pass catchers, is playing with Musgrave and those 3 guys. You're not losing a ton with Romeo Doubs. You're not losing a ton with Bo Melton, and that's great. But I think that's your group of best 3. Now, the offensive line is a question mark. It seems like Zach Tom is the right tackle, essentially no questions asked. It seems like Sean Ryan is going to be the right guard. Now that could change. Jordan Morgan, like if Josh Myers plays well enough to fend off Elton Jenkins sliding inside, pause, and Jordan Morgan, like I would say probably materially outplays Sean Ryan, like clearly outplays Sean Ryan. It could be the case that you slide Jordan Morgan in there. I don't think that's the most likely outcome, and I don't think it's the best outcome. I said the other day when we were talking about the best players on the team now and in the future, that if Elton Jenkins plays center, I think he can be an all-pro. That's how good I think he can be as a center. So if that's true, then I think your best 5 on the offensive line is Rasheed Walker at left tackle, Jordan Morgan at left guard, Elton Jenkins at center, Sean Ryan at right guard, and you let Josh Myers compete there if you want. I don't think that's actually going to happen. I keep hearing people say that. It's like, he's been a center his whole NFL career. Now you're going to move him to guard? Like, all the same issues he has at center, he's going to have a guard. Sunday, these decisions can get a little tougher though. Or Thursday or Monday or Friday, I guess, is week 1. Still, I think that's your best 5. And I think Jordan Morgan, left side, but not left tackle, because I've never bought the idea that he's a tackle. I think he's a guard. I think his best position in the NFL is at guard. It's cool that he can play tackle, but I think his best position is at guard. And I think the best thing for the Packers is Rasheed Walker sticks at left tackle. Zach Tom sticks at right tackle. Jordan Morgan is your left guard and is an awesome one. Elton Jenkins is your center, and Sean Ryan is your long-term fit at right guard. I think that's your best 5. And I think that's the best thing for the Packers. It's nice when those 2 things can go hand in hand. They don't always go hand in hand. They do in this case. And so that's your 11. You're in 11 personnel, 3 receivers, Luke Musgrave at tight end, Josh Jacobs at running back, Jordan Love probably under center, so you can get to your full menu, your run game, your play action game, your drop back game, everything. That sounds pretty good. The Packers really good last year doing that, but they're also really good out of 12 personnel dialing up play action shot plays. So I think we're going to learn some things in the preseason about how they want to play. Do they want to spread it out a little bit more? Do they want to play a little bit more like they did with Aaron Rodgers, where it's much more, gun and 3 receivers on the field? It's a lot to balance because your receivers are really good, your quarterback's really good, but you want to find that balance. That's going to be a tricky thing for Matt LaFleur. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Yeah, the NBA finals are over, the Stanley Cup final is over, but there's still tons of baseball to go to, and there's always, especially if you live in a city, something coming near you, or you live near a city, or you can drive to a city. There's concerts, there's comedy, there's theater, and there's games in the future. You can buy tickets now for the NFL games that are coming up in just a couple months. And Game Time is the place to do it. With last-minute tickets, you can save up to 60% buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. You can get panoramic views from the seats in the app before you buy, so you know what you're getting into. And with the low price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets for anything. Baseball is the easiest thing right now because you can go like tomorrow. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. We're going to get to the defensive side of the ball here in just a second. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Defensively for the Packers. This is much trickier to me because we kind of think we know the best personnel to be in. Beyond that, there are a lot of question marks. So let's try and back our way into this. Jair Alexander, definitely starting. Okay. Rashawn Gary, definitely starting. We know they're going to be a base 4-3 team. Kenny Clark, definitely starting. Xavier McKinney, definitely starting. Is that the whole list of guys that we know for sure are starting? Now, I think for the moment, Keyshawn Nixon is your nickel. I don't know if he's the best person to be in the nickel spot. We don't have to rehash a lot of those takes. And what's interesting is a deep sigh, I know. What's interesting to me is TJ Slayton seemingly being a starter for this team when I have to say, for as good as I think he is at what he does, I'm pretty surprised that they're not going to play just a big group of let's try and mess up the backfield with Wyatt or Brooks next to Kenny Clark, because Kenny Clark is a very good run defender too. And so what that signals to me, at least, is the Packers want to play with these lighter boxes, these nickel looks. Now that doesn't mean they're going to play, 6-man dime or even these 7-man looks. Like, you can play, if the Packers are going to play a bunch of cover 1 and cover 3, you can have a safety down. So even if he's not in the box, he's in a position to fit the run for you. But who are your linebackers? Right? Who is your defensive end opposite Rashawn Gary? Is it Preston Smith, or is the best thing that Lucas Van Ness? Look, the best thing is Lucas Van Ness plays well enough to take Preston Smith's spot. Do I think that's going to happen right now today? No. I think Preston Smith right now is your defensive end starting opposite Rashawn Gary. But I won't be surprised. This is so cowardly. I won't be surprised if Lucas Van Ness takes that job at some point, because I think hand in the dirt, defensive end, as a run defender, he's already able to do it. The pass rush is coming. The athletic gifts are incredible. And so I don't think he's ready yet, or at least based on what we've seen, he's not ready yet. But that doesn't mean by, July 22nd, when they open camp, that he won't be. I got to see it first. So we got to have that conversation first. So right now, it's Preston Smith. So your front is Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, and Rashawn Gary. And the reason it's TJ Slayton is because of the way they want to play. So it is my job in this exercise to fit what Jeff Hafley wants to be. And I think they want to play a ton of nickel, maybe even some big dime where you have 3 safeties and a nickel. And so you're not really maximizing the big bodies on the field. So you can't just have these penetrating defensive tackles. You have to have some guys who can eat up 2. And in the case of TJ Slayton and Kenny Clark, 2 guys who can eat up 2. So if that's the starting point, we have to just sort of take that as a given, that that's the way that they want to play, with at least one big body in the middle, then that guy is TJ Slayton. They started doing this last year, by the way. So who makes the most sense opposite Xavier McKinney? I want Javon Bullard to play the nickel because I think that's where he's best. But I just don't think that's the way it's going to play out. So I'm having to hedge my bets a little bit on that. I think the starting safeties are going to be Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard. But I wouldn't be surprised, again, being a little cowardly on this, if they do play a bunch of 3 safety looks. And maybe they play some base where Javon Bullard is your nickel if you have a group of guys on the field that you didn't expect, or a team has got a tight end that's a really good pass catcher and you want to have that extra ability to cover a Sam Laporta, let's say, but you want to defend the Lions' run game out of base. I think that is a potential reasonable thing to do. I don't see a world in which Edgerrin Cooper is not a starting linebacker. He just, to me, is the most talented of these linebackers. The question becomes who's starting opposite. Who's starting opposite him? I think it's going to be Quay Walker, but for how long? And if Edgerrin Cooper doesn't start the season, if Isaiah McDuffie and Quay Walker are the linebackers, whose spot does Edgerrin take? That's an interesting one too. But I think he is one of the best 11 right now. So he's got to be out there. I think the best 11, it's probably Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper, though I honestly, as players, in terms of player quality, forget upside, player quality at this minute, I don't think there's a huge difference between Quay Walker and Isaiah McDuffie. I just don't. If Keyshawn Nixon is your nickel and Jair Alexander is starting, that leaves your other corner. It seems like Eric Stokes is got the inside track to make that start. And if he's healthy, that's the right way to do this. If he's healthy, he's the guy that should be starting. If he's healthy and looks like Eric Stokes, then he's the best guy. The Carrington Valentine story is an awesome one. He can be great depth for you, but it's just not the same as what Eric Stokes can bring to you from a talent standpoint. Like some of the stuff we saw from him as a rookie, especially as a man corner, as a press corner, was high level cornerback play. And Valentine, relative to his draft stock, performed great last year. Relative to rookies, performed well last year. And relative to NFL cornerbacks, was, especially in the second half, solid. But Eric Stokes, his floor is higher. And to me, his ceiling is also significantly higher. And so that leaves the Packers, I think, with a straightforward decision. I don't want to say an easy decision, but I think for the moment, a straightforward decision. If Eric Stokes is healthy, if Eric Stokes can hold up, can he even make it through training camp? We'll see. That's why these decisions are never easy. Now, there are some stylistic things. What are the best stylistic choices? We talked a little bit about this in the first block. I want to talk about those choices. Blitz versus man coverage and offense and defense. Let's do that as we finish up on Locked On Packers. Locked On has launched the first ever sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So let's go back to the offense for a second. I have said that I want Matt LaFleur to open this offense up a little bit from a run-pass split standpoint. They threw it below expectation last year. I think on first down, I'd like to see them throw the ball more in game neutral situations. That's first and second down, these early down. I want to see them throw the ball more and more play action on first down. This has been something I've been calling for forever. They did a pretty good job when they got a first down call that worked. If let's say a first down run and you get into 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4. They were really good at second down aggressiveness, a shot play, or you get a first down pass that gets you into 2nd and 2. Play action shot play, understanding that now you've got 2 shots to come back and get 4th down. I want to see them be more aggressive on 4th down, although Matt LaFleur has been one of the best in kick-go situations. I think they're being one of the best relative to this group of NFL coaches is nothing to write home about. Like being better than Kyle Shanahan in those situations and Sean McVay, two of the best coaches in the league, they get really conservative in those circumstances. And I know it's like, oh, who are you? Just some dumb podcaster. The math. Blame the math. Don't blame me. They're not as aggressive as Dan Campbell in those situations. And if you're offensive geniuses, shouldn't you feel really confident in your play calling to go get yourself 4 yards or 3 yards or 5 yards in those situations? I think that makes sense. But I'm just a dumb podcaster. On defense, by the way, I still want them to run the ball. I still believe in running the ball. I still believe in run pass, not balance, but run pass. Well, I would use the word balance, but it's not like I want them to be 50-50. Striking the right balance, to me, the right balance is the key modifier there because it might be 80-20. If you're the 49ers, like it's just safer if you run the ball 60% of the time and let Brock Purdy throw the ball 40% of the time, lean into your play action game, and you're good. And when it was Aaron Rodgers and James Starks, it made sense to throw the ball 70% of the time on early downs because who you want to give the ball to, Aaron Rodgers or James Starks? So I still believe in some semblance of balance. But on early downs, I think they can be more aggressive throwing the ball. I think Jordan Love has proven that. I think this group of receivers has proven that. I think they can hold up in pass protection doing that. So that's something I would like to see. And they were more aggressive with Aaron Rodgers than they were with Jordan Love. Though in 2022, when they got really, really RPO heavy, Rodgers was calling a lot of runs on 2nd and long. They were RPOs, so like he gets to decide because teams were playing them with a ton of too high looks. And it was just, and this was true in 2021 too, it just was not the most efficient way to play offense. They have to find some better answers there than just saying like, run it on 2nd and 10 if you get a favorable box. Like, yeah, but like maybe more often have some better quick game options that get the ball in your receiver's hands where you know you're going to get more than 3 or 4 yards. Or you're pretty sure you're going to get more than 3 or 4 yards. That's easier said than done, of course. Now, defensively, press, man, coverage. I don't think they're going to play nearly as many reps of quarters as they did last year. I don't think you're going to see Jeff Hafley play as much quarters as Robert Saleh does, as DeMeco Ryans does. I think he's going to be his own coach. I think you're going to see a lot of cover 3, a lot of single high safety, a lot of movement at the snap, a lot of man coverage, all stuff that I have been asking for. So in that way, this is part of the reason I'm really excited about Jeff Hafley is he believes in press man. He believes in disrupting receivers at the line of scrimmage. He believes in disrupting the quarterback. He believes in playing aggressively in have-to-have-it situations. He believes that in the red zone, on 3rd down, in goal-to-go situations, you have to force the issue. You have to bring the fight to the offense rather than playing the reactionary Joe Barry, we're going to sit and read and react. Even the phrase vision and break is a little bit misleading because it sounds, if you want to hear it a certain way, a little passive. But what you're doing is you're seeing it and you're breaking. Did that pop the hell out of the mic? Sorry. And you're coming downhill. You're reacting to what you're seeing aggressively. So you still have to, defense is still an inherently reactive thing because you don't know where the offense is going, or not with 100% certainty. You may have some ideas. But so I think the defense is going to look that way. But then the question becomes, okay, how much do you blitz? When do you blitz? Is this mostly a third down thing? If you look at the teams that blitzed the least last year, they were also the teams that happened to be the most efficient with the blitz. The Jets, the Niners, and the Texans. D'Amico Ryans, Robert Saleh, and then Steve Wilkes, but it's the 49ers. It's Nick Bosa, it's Fred Warner, it's Dre Greenlaw. It's guys who can mess up a game for you. Edgerrin Cooper, one of the best blitzing linebackers in college football last year. Jeff Hafley, one of the most creative blitz designers in college football over the last half decade. He will tune you up. One of the reasons why I really like watching that Boston College team. I went back and watched some of that Ohio State team. He didn't really have to do much creative with that team in terms of the blitzing because it's just like, hey, Chase Young, go take care of this. And he mostly did. So it just so happens that I think defensively, the changes that I would have liked to seen from last year to this year are mostly taken care of in your scheme, because I think Jeff Hafley is going to bring a lot of that. It's one of the reasons why I'm really excited. So we'll see how much of that actually translates. We'll see how much the problems last year and the year before to some degree were symptomatic of personnel or scheme. We think we know the answers. The Packers clearly think they know the answer. But we have to have the evidence for real on the field, and we're going to get it pretty soon. All right, back next week with more Locked On Packers as we get you set for camp. Less than a month to go. We're going to be in the month pretty soon of training camp, July. July is going to be here before you know it. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. On any social media platform. Well, not any, but Instagram for sure, TikTok for sure, YouTube for sure. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts so you can stay Locked On Packers.